You can, Ernie.
All right.
Oop. I think I've figured out what's happening.
You will be admitted to the world of the great philosophers if you have.
We're just going to give everyone another minute before we get started.
Just
Tracy, would you say everyone has been let in? Well, while we're waiting to see if a couple more people are trying to get in, I'd like to welcome you all here today for this virtual walk of our campus. We are all very excited to do this, and we're absolutely looking forward to you being able to come onto our campus soon and do this for real. First, I'd like to introduce a few people. The first being our marketing director, Judy Francine. Judy has over 30 years of experience in senior living and has been with Hillside since the inception of the community coming to life. We have our residency counselor, Tracy Borden, who I will also need to give huge credit to for putting all of this together. She would not accept that, but she really was key to this presentation being put together for everyone. She is one of our residency counselors that works with people as they're exploring the idea of moving into Hillside Village. And she's been with us a few years, but has an extensive background with communication and marketing and overall community involvement. And I'm going to turn this over now to Tracy and Judy so that they can tell you a little bit about what Hillside is before we jump into the trails.
Hi, this is Judy.
morning. There we go. Good morning. I was waiting for, okay, let me just let this person in and then, okay. So good morning. I think Judy, one of us maybe will start and the other will pick up, and I thought maybe you would start talking about a little bit about what Hillside Village is.
Absolutely. So I will say that I have been blessed. I was the first employee to start here at Hillside Village back in, I guess it was August of 2015. So for the last almost 5 years, this has been a labor of love. It's been exciting from when we first opened up the community and moving people in and having people come in here and get settled to the new normal that we're in today, which has brought upon a totally different mindset of what we are as an organization and how we do these events going forward. Who would have thought that, this is where we would be today? This is our new normal. But I'm happy to say we've started to lift restrictions slowly. Housekeeping starts again this week for our residents, and we're allowing folks to have a little more freedom of leaving the campus and doing trips. We're asking them not to get out of their vehicles, but they can go for rides in the country, or they could do solo events if they wanted to go for a kayak ride or a canoe, a paddle or something like that, where they're still social distancing away from other individuals. But very excited to have you join us today, and just wanted to welcome you.
All right, so just a quick little kind of overview of Hillside Village, what we are, what we're about, for any of you who may not already know that. I know we have a mix of maybe folks that we've already spoken with before, and some new folks joining us here today. So we are a not-for-profit life plan community for our seniors age 62 and up. We have been open for just a little over a year now. Sometimes it's hard to believe that it's been a year already, but then it went by really fast. So we are so life plan community, meaning we have the full continuum of healthcare should it be needed at any point in the future. We focus on independent living. We are a very, I think, warm, welcoming, respectful community. Whether you are a resident or a staff member, I think you definitely feel like you are a part of a community and part of something that's really very special. We find that we are very inclusive of everyone, regardless of background or beliefs or whatever that might be. We're individualized in that we are, not just, we're individualized from, the type of apartment that you can have. We have about a dozen to 15 or so different kinds of floor plans that you can choose from, but we're also, I think, individualized, meaning that it's important to us to develop programming that appeals to everyone, no matter where they're at. So we're really looking to our residents to kind of let us know what the community is going to be as we move into the future. And I think today's presentation will show you one aspect of that, where the residents have absolutely been instrumental in shaping what our outdoor spaces are going to become, and we're excited about how that's going to go. We are affordable in that living at Hillside would be comparative to living in your home and maintaining your home and what those costs might be associated with that. And of course, we're fun. We like to throw in as much fun as possible. I think the photo you're looking at right now speaks to that. And that's a typical, when we're fully open and operating, those are typical smiles and typical looks of enjoyment on the faces right there. Those are actually some of our residents that you're seeing. So it's a little nutshell of who we are. And I apologize, there seems to be a little delay. There we go. Judy, do you want to just talk a little bit more about the continuum?
All right, I can actually do that if you'd like. I didn't introduce myself, Joy Peterson, and my job is to work with the assisted living, memory care, and nursing that we have here, which is what makes Hillside Village the full continuum of care or life plan community. So while we focus on independent living and that a person is able to live independently without the burdens of home ownership, when the time comes that you do need that extra help, even if it's temporarily, we do have an on-site health center. So our on-site health center, which is known as Prospect Woodward, has private assisted living and memory care neighborhoods and apartments It's a specialized memory care, which is really nice. There's not a lot of that in this neighborhood. And then also the nursing care. So regardless of what happens as you age, we're going to help you and take care of you through all of those steps. And that's really what gives you that life plan. You know, once you're here, you and your family, your loved ones, your support network are not going to have to worry about what's going to happen to mom or dad. And I can tell you with my experience that is beyond words. It's so important. And Judy, I don't know if you want to add to anything. I see you unmuted.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and you know, I've been in this industry for a very long time and have had personal family members that have needed a continuum of care. And just the bottom line is it offers a great deal of peace of mind to everybody involved in the situation, knowing that you've made a decision for yourself for the future and it's not landing in somebody else's hands to make that decision for you.
Yep, absolutely. And you're getting a certain level of care when that time comes. There's nothing worse than being in crisis mode and having someone that, you know, cares about you making phone calls randomly until they find a place that might work. So you really have to think of Hillside as two parts. Not only does it give you that independent senior living, but it also gives you that safety net that you more than likely, unfortunately, will need as people get older. You know, we're living longer and more independent, but we do get to a point that we do need a little bit more help as we age. And Tracy's going to give us a nice overview of the campus so that we can put our perspective into walk for you. Our walk into perspective for you.
All of those things.
All
Yeah,
of it.
so just wanted to kind of give you an overall look at the campus because it will help you as we move into the walk on the Stonewall Trail and the surrounding areas of that trail. Will help you to know where we're at on our campus. So I know some of you have probably been here before, but some may have not been here. So just to give you the idea of where we are on the map. So I hope you can all see my little red pointer here on the map. And so I'm actually driving down Wyman Road right now. I've just come off of Route 12. And so this is Wyman Road coming into the community. And this is our full, almost our full campus here. A little bit of it might be cropped out of the photo. But if you turn in here on the right-hand side of the road, this is our community center. So this would be the main entrance right here. And so when you come into the community center, this is where you're going to find our concierge. It's where you're going to find all of our dining venues, all of our what we like to call fun spaces. So the Performing Arts Center, the Arts and Crafts, the movie theater, all of these types of things are in this portion of the building. Then it moves out into the apartment wings, 4 apartment wings, with 116 independent living apartments. And then we are connected by a climate controlled walkway over to the Woodside Apartments, which is just another option for independent living. We have 24 apartments over in that building. And so if you were to look out across this, our little access road here, which we've got some little bit of competition on names for this road going on. I think we've talked about Woodside Drive. We've talked about Hillside Promenade. I kind of like that. So anyway, looking across the road and down into this area, this is all open land. This is all conservation land that will not be developed. And way down here across the meadow is our Meadow Loop path. We're not going to be focusing on our Meadow Loop path today, but I wanted to point it out because it's easily accessed from the community. You go down this across the road, there's a bridge that crosses Black Brook, and then this path is a 3/4 mile loop. And in our next event that we have coming up, we'll be focusing on this area a little more, but we wanted to point it out because it's actually a really popular place. A lot of people walking out there. It's very accessible for everyone. It's very flat and very easy to navigate. So that's a nice trail out there. If we come back up to the community center, if you were to come onto the other side of Wyman Road, this is our health center. So this is what Joy was speaking about, where our assisted living and our memory care and our nursing care exists in this building over here. Just also on this side of the road, we were very fortunate in our development. Initially, our property was a 48-acre property. It did not include the barn, which was Miracles in Motion, and another 18 acres that we acquired with that. So if we had not done that, we would probably not be showing you this presentation today, at least in this form, because I think some of the land that we're looking at today was a part of that addition of property. So, but this is the side of the road that we're going to be on. The area that we're getting ready to show you and move into is accessed a couple of different ways, either from the barn. There's a trail here, there's some trails behind the health center, and later on we're going to show you another map that gives you another perspective of this area. But this kind of sets you up for where we are on the campus today, which is right down in this section here. And
All right, so there's a couple different ideas to this, and the first really is, one of the appeals of independent senior living is that satisfaction gained by being part of something that's greater than yourself. Resident groups such as the Hillside Hikers, who really are the ones who created and developed this hiking program, not only does it nurture common interests, but it helps to continue that idea of creating new friends, including people, well-being. There's, at any age, it's amazing to say, I've made new friends. And I think that's really important. And especially to our health, heading outdoors has numerous advantages to your health. We all know the expression, if you don't move it, you lose it. And it's absolutely true. We have to stay healthy, stay active, and engage in that physical activity, not just for our obvious physical benefits, but for mental health. It increases natural killer cells that help you to fight disease. It decreases stress levels. It can improve creativity. Photography is something that, some people don't take up until they're in their older years and they really appreciate what they're looking at. Depression is absolutely lowered by being outdoors and getting involved in nature. Sometimes we have traumatic events in our lives, especially as we grow older, which, we don't look at it as PTSD, but in a way it is. And, being outside and staying active helps all of that. The idea is that we want to be better and as healthy as we can. And whether it's a simple walk, because that's what you can do, or you're going to go hike Mount Monadnock, because that's what you can do. I think the idea of staying healthy is so important to any aging that you might have. So we are going to get started with the show. And a couple little things, a lot of what we're going to see today are going to be slideshows and movies. And there will be points, I will introduce you to our two guest residents, Ted Aldrich and Ernie Mills, who were intricate in putting all this together. So first I want to show you a little bit of an overview of the trail system that they developed. And this was a map developed by Ted Aldrich and the Hillside Hikers. This really gives you a nice feel for how things are going to work and be set up. You can see that we have a number of trails that have been developed. Now the Stonewall Trail is the one that we're exploring the most today. And you can see that's that heavy gray line that's running through, I call it the left side of that map. You're going to see that right down to the grades have been indicated so that a person knows just about how far they can go or which trail is going to be good for them. You know, there's multiple stops along the way, and then you can see near the end, it's going right into the next trail. So it really gives people a nice idea. You feel like you're in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, yet you are very close to being home. And that's the really nice thing about the hillside trails. So as we're going through the videos, it'll be, you know, any questions you have, you know, keep them in mind. If you know how to use the chat box, you're more than welcome to type in questions, but we definitely will have more discussion and questions, an opportunity for those at the end. So I'm going to be quiet and let you enjoy the beautiful trails of Hillside Village. All right, so I'm going to give everyone a heads up that we had some beautiful music that would have been playing during that slideshow. But as is anything, if you've been on any webinars, as much as you practice, things don't always happen exactly the way they should. So at this point, what I want to do is introduce Ted Aldrich to talk a little bit more about the trail and what we are doing, what his work has done. Ted, would you like to jump in at this point?
I will be happy to, though I think that a good deal of what you have already said is fine. You've pretty much said it all with the kinds of comments that you've made.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to say that when three of us first went on this a little over 2 months ago, it was just a hike through the wilderness. And we had no idea at that time that we would be able to develop a path that would be comfortably navigable by just about everyone that's in our facility. But in order to achieve that, there was a lot of barbed wire that needed to be removed. We needed to make paths through the stone walls. This place that you see in this first picture is a place in the wall that you had to climb over in order to get onto what we named the Stonewall Trail. We also had a lot of stumps and a lot of drainage and other issues, including rocks and a lot of wood that was actually down across. This is a picture of one of the sections of the trail before we started working on it. And I remember going out there after a heavy rain and seeing perhaps close to an inch of water flowing down the trail toward you. That all was mitigated so that if we take a look at the after shot, which is the next slide, you will see that what we have done is to create a level walking surface with sluiceways that cross the trail to take care of the 6 springs that have been on the left that are actually bubbling out of the ground and feeding that inch of water that I told you earlier was flowing down the trail. So this is just an idea of some of the kinds of things that we did. There were also 2 trees that were adjacent to the maple that's with the sap bucket next to it. A little further in the trail, one of the things we encountered a significant amount of were the roots, which you see in the foreground. And that area that's marked off with the orange tape on the stakes was so muddy that if you walked over it, you could sink in well up to your ankle in just muck. And so all of that needed to be properly drained by putting underground coarse material in that the water could flow through, and then compacting material that was put on top. So, but we're really getting into the construction of this, which was a true delight. It was not work, it was pure pleasure. And this is what we came up with when we got done.
Wow.
The after shot of that particular area. Very, very comfortable walking.
Yeah, that's an amazing transformation, Ted. Clearly a lot of work was done on this.
A lot of fun was had by it. And when I seek pleasure, it does not involve sitting around listening to the kinds of things that are going on in our world today. It has to do with being out in a place where I can enjoy Mother Nature. And the fact that other people are able to enjoy this is just a wonderful ancillary benefit. I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to be involved in this.
That's wonderful, truly. And Ernie, I don't want to leave you out. If there's anything you'd like to jump in, I know you work mostly a lot with the hillside hikers, and you've walked this path several times.
Oh, it's a good path. One of the reasons when we surveyed this a while ago now, we're thinking of a path that was in the shade. So that on hot summer days, if you wanted to take a walk, you could do that and stay in relative comfort. And certainly this trail provides it. A lot of work was done on it. Ted did much of the hard work. I'm good at watching him work, but he did a lot of the hard work. And it turned out to be very, very good. It's easy, and like Ted says, pretty much everyone who is at Hillside in the independent living can walk this trail.
Excellent. And we just had a question if it's navigable by walker. You know, and I think that's a good point. I know we have a lot of different areas outside that are. Would you say there are aspects?
If I could jump in, I would say that the sluiceways might be an area that would prohibit being comfortable with a walker. But if a person is comfortable enough with a walker so they can pick it up and lift it over those, that is one possibility. There are some significant slopes. I tried to keep everything less than 15% grade. So if you're aware of how much of a slope that is, that too would determine whether or not you would be comfortable on it with the walker. And there are routes that you could take that would get you to steeper slopes than that, but this is a place that you can get to and enjoy with 15% or less in the way of grades.
Oh, great. That's wonderful and good information to know. What do we have?
So this next is another grouping again of slides that we'll roll through. And this is really focused on the Stonewall Trail itself. So some of these areas that we just looked at. So it just kind of plays through.
Oh, you're off.
Funny.
Oh, you're on?
Okay.
And then that light bulb.
Sorry.
Thank you. I didn't think you were coming.
I'm live on. See me.
There we go. Not sure what happened.
That's okay. Maybe we could temporarily mute Ernie.
Absolutely.
So here we have Ted, and he looks like he's alone on a path in the middle of nowhere, but he's not. One of the great things about our trails around the community is that there are so many little side trips and different areas that can be explored. For example, a Dog Yard Trail comes into an area with 2 beaver dams on the meadow. And Ted, since you took these photos, do you want to tell us more about our beaver family at Hillside Village? On the next slide.
I'm not quite sure what I can say about the beaver themselves, except that when we discovered this particular area, it was socked in well enough so you could see it only through a good deal of brush. And we opened it up so that you could have that view. And in the process of doing that, we discovered there were places where there were high bush blueberries on site. There was a nice place where you could get a good view of this beaver dam that's in the foreground, in the background. I have seen beaver a number of times that have gone to that dam and up over the top of it into the pool that's above. I decided to call it the Beaver Bar because in the process of doing the work, I discovered an apple tree which had been sampled very significantly, probably well over a year ago, and some much newer samplings that had been taken. So apparently it is a place where beavers go to get a taste of apple, and later on we can enjoy some of the high bush blueberries. I might also comment that there is a second dam to the left of this one, and I cleared an area so that you can get down close to the level of the water in that area. But this is another one of those places that I would say is inappropriate for people that are uncomfortable with steep grades, because it's probably a 40% or greater grade down to the lower level in this particular location. But it has been cleared so that there is a nice area up top where you can get this kind of a view and still be in the shade for a good deal of the day. This is another view of the same thing. Oh, we have a video.
Yeah, I probably should have started this video while you were speaking, Ted, but this is kind of where you would shoot off of the Stonewall Trail if you wanted to walk across the meadow and meet up with and cross over to the Beaver Bar. So this takes us over there. I would add, Kim and I went out to do some filming and photos for this event, and Kim actually got to see the beavers swimming while we were over there. So that was a real unexpected treat for us. We had no idea that we were gonna see such a thing while we were out there. So that was a lot of fun. They're not in this video, however, unfortunately. They must have known we were filming.
Yes, their bosses wouldn't allow it.
They hadn't signed a video release form.
They were very, very expensive. And you know, the videos and you know, we tried to capture as much of the beauty as we could, you know, but I will say, you know, we do look forward to the opportunity of taking you through these trails. Now, I know Jerry had asked a question regarding a scale map with distances and whatnot. And yes, we do. Earlier in the slideshow, there was a map that had some of that that Ted had developed. And Ted, you're welcome to jump in on that question as well.
Well, I might comment that that particular map was taken using a GPS system that was available through eBird, which Carolyn and I use when we go birding. And it provides a scale which I developed to, I think it was roughly 1 inch equals 285 feet. So if you were to leave the center, the main entrance of Hillside, and take any one of those dotted lines, which are the access to the different trails that we're looking at in this northwest quadrant of our campus, you'd find that you could walk probably somewhere between 9/10 of a mile and a little more than a mile. And there are variations on that all the way down to a 1/4 of a mile walk that you can take in these places. So that gives you an idea of the scale itself. If you were to actually take a closer look at that thing, I think you will find that the amount of trail which is on the far side of the stone wall, on the west side of the stone wall, is something in excess of 1,000 feet. Just from the entrance where where you can get onto it from the dog yard trail. And I say that because that would be the one that would have the least amount of grade at any given point.
Great.
I don't know whether there are further questions that people might have with regard to those distances or not, but
Yeah,
I get a pretty good sense of what they are.
Yeah, we did have a question regarding that, the distance, the length of that trail. So it's about approximately 1,000 square feet.
It's about 1,000 feet, linear feet, from the entrance from the dog yard. There's probably another 400 feet if you go in all the way down this section of it we're looking at right now, toward the health center.
Okay. Oh, and guess who that is?
Yeah. By the way, it may seem inappropriate for somebody to be wearing a backpack for being out there only for the amount of time it take to walk a mile, but there were a good many days that I was out there for anywhere from 4 to 8 or 9 hours. And that backpack not only contained first aid, water, camera, the kinds of things that I might need either for the fun of it or in case of an emergency. So I have a tendency to travel heavier than I need to.
Well, you know, I want to say that better safe than sorry, but I believe the Scouts have a better saying than that, correct?
Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Yes. Yep. Excellent.
Interesting comment that you bring up Scouts, because the number of the hikers are former Scouts, including a fair number of Eagles. So
Excellent.
it's a wonderful group to interact with when you get together with like-minded hikers.
Absolutely. I bet you learn a lot from one another.
You know, that's one of the things that I am encouraging at this point. I know a fair number of birds pretty well. But I learned this morning from one of the residents that there's an awful lot to know about ferns that I don't know, which I can appreciate. And so I'm encouraging people to make contributions toward a brochure that we can create that will include butterflies and birds and ferns and other plants. We had the good fortune of one of the people that volunteered to work on this being very knowledgeable about invasives. So a significant number of those have been removed from the property, which it improved the view significantly in addition to restoring nature to what it might have been before man brought in some of these things that have gone a little bit out of control.
Oh, absolutely. Anyone with a garden absolutely knows what some of those plants, that they can wreak havoc on any natural environment.
This view that we have in front of us right now, by the way, nice vista of Monadnock. That tree was a little wobbly when we first encountered it. I put a level onto it and lowered it so that it is now supported in either 4 or 5 places fairly significantly, and it's not only very firm, but it's probably a good 3 feet lower than what you see out near the boulder on the left, which makes it a great place for people to sit. And there is a picnic table now in front of it. So that came as a result of my just casually mentioning that I had seen 3 different couples out there that were enjoying the view with lunch that they had packed, and they were sitting on the rocks or on the logs.
It looks like a very peaceful place, definitely.
Oh, it is wonderfully peaceful.
Yeah.
And I'll mention in the video that's coming up, we see this spot again, but in the video, I believe at that point the tree had been lowered as you described,
Yeah.
and the picnic table had been added, so they'll get to see that.
Yeah.
I might make another interjection here if I could, and that is we also have a good view of the barn, and that barn may be something that people would consider to be obtrusive in some ways, but it's Miracles in Motion, and that sign is on the front of the barn, and I can't think of anything more appropriate than to label the people that are responsible for our facility, making that their home, as being Miracles in Motion. They do such a wonderful job of taking care of us and our grounds here at Hillside.
Oh, well, that's wonderful to
I
hear.
think we should note we did not pay him to say that. That was all Ted.
No, it takes a family and it takes a team. And I think that's one thing that's absolutely being developed here at Hillside is that sense of family among employees and residents. And I believe that a lot of the work and effort, which was loved, but part of it by the residents, the employees support that. And if we help wherever we can. Definitely. So I think we're going to start another video so you can see a little bit more of some of the trails. And of course, if Ted or Ernie, you want to jump in or point anything out during this video, you're more than welcome to do so.
One of our volunteers removed significant amounts of invasive, primarily roses, but also it was a buckthorn that really clouded this area with a lot of brush. And it's nice to have it open, a good view from it. This does show the table and the log for sitting.
I must confess, this was a project that I could have just found excuses to stay out there filming all day. It was so nice, peaceful.
You nailed why I do not call that job that we did out there work.
Mm-hmm.
It was leisure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Monadnock again on a mistier day.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to interject. What I find is lovely is that when we have time to escape or we need a quick 15, 20-minute break, we can go out there and we can just rejuvenate ourselves as staff.
I think when I do that, it affects the video. So we're going to move on from the video.
All right.
When were those stone walls built?
I'm going to guess, I'm just a guess, that these are over 125 years old. Probably quite a bit older than that. And I do know that I believe that Andy may have, or Paul, one of the people that is among our groundkeepers, has some kind of a program that shows him the different ages of barbed wire, depending on the way in which it is constructed. And he was going to try to give us an idea. And I would say also that most of that barbed wire must have been close to 100 years old. There were 3 strands of it. There is still barbed wire, mostly marked with orange flags when I could find it. But there were, I'm going to guess, probably 2,000 feet of that we removed from the area where the path is.
Amazing.
All right.
So I'll kind of set this up a little bit because this was my, we just had all of these beautiful photos that several of us had taken. And I know, Ted, these are some of yours, and they didn't really fit in on the trail anywhere, but I wanted people to see them because these are scenes from the land and the property. And I just thought it was worth noting. So if you have anything to say about these next 3 or 4 photos, feel free to just chime in on them. But, you know.
These were pictures of, there were probably 6 mallards that were in the Ashwellet River when the hiking group went to walk through along the edge of the Ashwellet, which is off campus, but it was a wonderful hike. We enjoyed that very much.
Okay.
And I think there were probably 24 of us that were on that hike that day.
I assumed these were in the pond, and I'm sure that we have mallards that visit our pond, so. And then, here we go.
And this little guy.
Yeah. Tell us about this little guy.
That is just a newt, or an F.
We were impressed by him.
We were.
His coloring is just amazing.
I would say that this guy was probably all of 3 inches long, maybe a little bit more than that. So I did kind of step back and zoom in on him so that you get, it doesn't really show very well, but he does have some deeper orange spots that are in that row along his back.
We thought he was very cute, and he deserved some recognition.
Yes.
And then I know you have something to say about this, Ted.
This is the first flower that I found blooming this spring. It is a trout lily, and aptly named because of the spots that are on its leaves. And I have seen variations of this that are a little more ornate than this one, with an more orange center. But this will give you a good idea of some of the offerings nature has for us that are out there.
Yeah, and that's a really important point that you know, our hikers are happy, you know, to. Oh wait, I'm so sorry. I had a question of what kind of hawk this is.
This is a red-shouldered hawk that I was lucky enough to get a picture of as it passed overhead.
That's a beautiful picture, definitely. Yeah. Tracy, can you advance the?
I meant to make a note on that to be sure. I'm 90% sure that that's the red-shouldered rather than the red-tailed, which is another one that we see here frequently.
Okay. And we're approaching now, we have our final video, which will just give you some more views of what's occurring throughout the end of our trail. And I will talk a little that the sounds that this had, they just weren't loud enough to bring in, but the frogs and birds were very impressive that day.
They are most days.
Mm.
There is so much that this area has to offer, not only in the way of sounds, but the beautiful colors. There is some aroma that you can pick up from it, which is fresh and refreshing.
Yes. Yeah. And in the
This is
fall,
a view across the pond of what I've labeled Bird Ridge up there on the right.
oh, I see, with all the birdhouses, and which were made by our woodworking our woodworking group, our residents.
Yes.
Yep. And in the fall, I will say this is absolutely a stunning property. You know, so it really is year-round beauty.
There were some comments about cutting some of the trees to improve the earlier view that we had of Monadnock, but when you stop and think about what that would offer in the fall in terms of framing what you would look at with the color of autumn leaves, I think it's best to leave well enough alone.
Yeah, yep, sometimes let nature be. And this
Yes.
is just, yeah, this is just showing, you know, with all of this happening, you know, this is our campus. This is only our little area right here. One thing that we'll chat about now is, you know, that our hikers, Hillside Hikers Group, and I am going to let Ernie do most of the talking on this as he's a big member of this group. They hike everywhere. And I think that's something that, you know, he's an intricate part of and would really love to share with you more about the Hillside Hikers. Tracy, can you unmute Ernie for me?
There we go.
Here you are.
All right, I'm unmuted. Yes, I am. Yeah, this is a group of our hikers that, you know, there's men and women involved. Some of us, our spouses can't join us. They perhaps can't hike anymore or they have issues. But we have a good group. And basically, when we can, we participate in the Cheshire Walkers. Cheshire Medical Center has a walk in the spring and fall for about 2 months. We go as a group with a hospital facilitator and go to different places in the lower New Hampshire here. Interesting outings. Besides that, we also do a hike, try to get at least one hike in a week. We carpool and go together for these, and a lot of times you can see a lot of people use the poles because it gives you a little more balance when you're out there in the woods. And this is good because these are trails in southern New Hampshire that are pretty good. We try to rate them what we call for 7th and 8th decade people, okay? Now, the Adirondack Mountain Club may say it's easy, you know, but that's usually often a 25-year-olds. We're looking at what can we do in the 7th and 8th decade, and in one case, the 9th. And so we take a look at those when we think about hikes that we're going to take here in the region. That's looking up, that hike there, that is in Tippin Rock in Swansea, and we're above Tippin Rock, and a couple of the hikers are looking to the west across into Vermont from that viewpoint. That's what that actually looks like there, and it's an interesting, that's a nice hike.
Yeah.
I've not yet been able to tip the rock, but one of these days I'm going to figure out how that works. But it's a beautiful hike and a lot of fun. And we, you know, pretty good. And the next slide shows us, here we go. This is going to be, oh, you've just got one up. Okay, well, that one on the right is, on the left is Pisgah Ridge Trail in Pisgah State Park. And that's about almost a half-day hike that we went on in the fall. And here we're standing on one of the peaks there. and getting a picture of it, the group. Upper right-hand side, that's Otter Creek, which is a water flood control dam area, and it has a very nice walking, and it's good for if you do use the service road. It's a very simple hike. You don't have to go on the western side, which is the woods. On the bottom, that's my mug on the left, happy me. And this is the hunting season. We're out, we're hunting, and we have a lot of colorful clothing on, and that is Carroll's Hill in Swansea, which is a nice 2-hour, 2.5-hour walk, some elevation gain, and a nice view of Monadnock from the top. That's a sampling of a few of the hikes that we do. We do a lot more, and we're looking for a lot more. We're always open for that. But those are some that we try to get out to when we can.
Yeah.
And I could go on and on. I used to teach, but I will stop here and let somebody else now take it over.
No, you did wonderfully. Thank you. I think you gave a nice view of what's happening. One of the things happening here at Hillside. Now, I know we have some questions. I know someone had asked about the map and where exactly on the campus is the start of the stone trail. And is that opening by the barn? I don't know, Tracy, how easy it is for you to go back to that trail map.
Right. Let me see if I can manage to get us back there.
But if someone, yeah, while she does that, if anyone has any questions, I
Can you
like
see it?
it. Yeah, wait one moment. So Ted, if you would jump in on this map and explain a little bit where the entrance is that.
Okay, well, I think if you take a look in the lower right-hand corner, you will see the main entrance to our facility. And the dashed line that goes down and moves toward the right is actually Wyman Road. Thank you for following that with your cursor. If you stop right there and turn left, go across Wyman Road, you'll find yourself on a path that leads out past the Miracles in Motion barn. And once you reach the back end of the barn, there's a garden on your right, and on the left, there's a dip that goes down into the field that takes you to the Dog Yard Trail. Now, if you stop there, one of your options to get onto the Stonewall Trail is to turn left, and you will see a sign. There's a pallet that crosses a damp area about where the cursor is now. You go through the stone wall, and you can turn left if you want a short trip. You can turn right if you want the longer trip. And this is the one that takes you all the way out to the stone wall that is perpendicular to the one that most of the trail is next to. There is one section there, if you move ahead a little bit with the cursor, where there is a maple tree that the stone wall had kind of been built around it. And at the time that I encountered that wall was probably a good 2.5 feet above the ground at that point. And I basically filled it in so that you could get around the tree and not have to climb up a major hill in order to go on the uphill side of the maple. So that area, there's where you are now, there's a slope up, and then it goes back down again until you get to the two sluices that mitigated all of the springs that were coming out of the ground. And actually, the second sluice there was originally, I had channeled flows of water that were coming off the hill to the left to go across the trail at that point. But no amount of digging and then covering up so that it wasn't a scar, I could not mitigate the way in which the water was flowing. It was going underground, coming out on the trail itself. So that was the reason for there being the second sluice.
Okay.
At any rate, I'm guessing that from that place where I said you turn the Dog Yard gate all the way to the gate that's ahead of us, the Dog Yard gate, I'm going to guess that's about 1,000 feet.
Okay. Oh, excellent.
That particular location now is where the picnic table is.
Mhm.
And as I said, this scale is about 285 feet per inch. So that'll give you a feeling for how far or how far along the trail that is.
Well, it's wonderful. All right, I'm gonna just see if we're approaching the
Now-
hour mark, so I want to make sure we get any other questions. Any other questions? Okay.
Are we unmuted?
You are
Yeah,
unmuted.
sorry, sorry.
Oh, I have a couple of general questions, not about the trails, but about some of the stuff you showed before. The barn, is that where the woodworking shop is?
Yes.
Yes,
And that's pretty well stocked, is it? I mean, with equipment and,
it's currently being designed by the woodworkers, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I'm not, it's been a while. I apologize. It's been a while since I've known an update on that, and perhaps Judy may have a little more info that she can chime in with. But our woodworking group formed before the community was even ready to move into. We had a group of folks, I'd say a dozen or so, that really wanted to be an integral part of that, and they've been working very closely with Andy, our director of facilities, to make that space happen in the barn. I'm not sure quite where that's at, but it's a collaborative project between the resident-driven woodworking group and the facilities.
Just add there, from my knowledge, I'm not in the woodworking group, but I know that a lot of people, when they moved here, donated tools and equipment to Hillside Village. And we have an awful lot of that in the barn area, and you're free to use it, and I know people do. And so, you know, it's one of the things you do when you're getting our age and you're making a move is, what do you do with all this stuff? And some of the stuff is very useful, and certainly other people can use it here at Hillside, and that's what we've done.
Right. Yeah, I know there were at least a couple of the gentlemen who kind of headed up that group who had very, very well stocked woodworking shops in their own homes before they came here, and they brought and donated most, if not all, of their equipment to that cause.
Right.
well, I have one other general question that had to do with what you showed early on. It's not trail related, but it has to do with the main building and the Woodside building. Are those facing primarily east, or is it more northern than that? I mean, where are the balconies? Are they on the east side of the building, or yeah, that's the shot.
So
Yeah, the balconies, the building faces, see the Promenade Road? That road, the gray road?
In front?
Well, it's on the top. It's,
Yeah.
Trying to get
You
the
see,
pointer. Here we
it's in
go.
front of the 4 blue edition things. That faces basically east.
Yeah.
To your left is north, to your right is south. We get a good breeze here. It's very good. When you're walking in the evening, there's not a lot of bugs because of that breeze. Nice, and goes pretty well. So you get the morning sun.
So that road is basically north-south?
Correct.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I might comment that the arrow, which is in the lower left corner of this slide, is pointing north.
Right.
Oh, yeah, okay.
and I believe all of the apartments, and please jump in, have a view of Mount Monadnock of some kind, or
Um,
or
Not every
No.
apartment,
No.
but every apartment has a balcony or a porch, depending on the floor that you're on. But every apartment has an outside space, a screened-in balcony or porch.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And
That's
I was wondering if those balconies are on the east side of the building.
For the most part, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions at this time? All right, we'll, oh,
Hi. Oh,
Yep.
there you go.
Barbara?
Barbara, were you trying to ask something?
No, I was just
Sure.
trying to figure out the map a little bit more.
I got it.
Takes me a while.
I can't see everybody on the screen here all at one time, so I'm looking for visual cues as to whether you're trying to ask a question, but
Thank you.
You know, one thing that could be mentioned as we're going here, besides the walks on campus and the ones we take by car, we're surrounded by woods and cornfield, which are not posted. And we spend a lot of time walking in the fields and in the hills and woods around Hillside. We have a trail that goes all the way up to, I think it's Route 12, through the woods, and across the way, there's the entryway and up to a water tower, and then a lot of hiking trails after that, which you can get to without a car. And so a lot of us do. There's a lot of opportunities here for outside activity.
Absolutely, yes. So I'm sure most of you know about our next 2 series that we're going to have. We're going to take a look at some different other areas of the campus. Next Tuesday at 11 is the amazing story of the Meadow Loop, as well as the future pollinator garden. And you know what we're working towards to developing that. And then the following, on the 30th, we have another one that's going to explore the gardenings. We have the gardens. We have a lot of gardeners that live here and want to continue gardening as though they did in their own yards. So we're going to discuss and review those as well.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
If you haven't RSVP'd, you know, definitely do so.
Yeah, and just if I could quickly, you know, I think today's event, along with the 2 coming up, are very wonderful examples of the nature of our community, which is we're very resident driven. These are featuring projects that are in various stages of planning or development, and very much what the residents are interested in, asking to do, or just doing. So I think it's a really nice way of kind of showing how our residents are very integral to the shaping and development of the community as we all grow together from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
If I could interject, I might add that one of the most pleasurable experiences I've had being here is the intellectual stimulation that I get from the residents that I have met. It is wonderful to be able to go out in the woods and look at a piece of greenery and know that it is a Christmas fern or an ostrich fern, and those fiddleheads are edible and others are not, or to be able to identify birds the way we do, or the other things that we encounter in nature. But it goes so much beyond that in terms of the kinds of experiences that so many of the people here have had during their lifetimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, when the library's open, a lot of people get different kinds of magazines, you know, besides the traditional ones, and they're put in there for others to see, and it's fun. You see an awful lot of stuff that you would not otherwise see. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, I'd say too, if this has intrigued you and you'd like to learn a little bit more about Hillside Village, I would reach out to Judy or Tracy. They'll be touching base with you most likely over the next week to see if you haven't signed up for the Meadow virtual tour or have any questions or want information on Hillside Village. I'm available for the assisted living and the memory care. Right now, we do have availability on that end. So maybe someone who isn't quite independent and able to live in the main Hillside Village might be an option for them to look at the healthcare center. But overall, we love what we do. This is an amazing team, and we love to educate and work with all of you. You know, exploring this and looking into it is a huge first step.
I think this looks like the same person, the live one in her picture.
And Judy and Tracy, if you'd like to say anything to wrap up, you know, that'd be great.
Not muted.
I know I would like to say a big thank you just for attending and for hanging in there with us. I think overall everything went really great. Just a couple of little minor things that were kind of unexpected. I think that's a little, it speaks to the world we're living in right now. We're all learning new ways of you know, kind of presenting ideas and sharing and communicating. And so this was a fun thing to do, and we sure would love to have you come back and join us for the next couple of events, and or just hear feedback from you or chat with you. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have any suggestions for any type of event like this? We are more than open to listening to them. We're always looking for some fantastic new ideas.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Well, we will wish you all a wonderful day. Thank you again so much for joining us. We hope to see you next on the 23rd for the Meadow and the Pollinator.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm trying. Here we go.
Whoops.
There's still people.